right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales
Mhm.
magazine, and Pipeline or CRM, joining you as usual from San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined from the other side of the country in the mountains of North Carolina in Boone, Taylor Shanklin Wilson. How you doing, Taylor?
I'm good. How are you, John? Good to see
I'm
you.
doing yeah, you too. And Taylor is the CEO and founder of Creative Sizzle, a subscription-based creative agency specializing in content design on demand. Over 20 years experience in marketing, multimedia, and grand brand growth. Easy for me to say. Also a TEDx speaker with the talks has reached well over 300,000 views. A certified business made simple coach and host of Talking Shizzle podcast. You really give me all these ones to stumble over today.
I know. Talking chisel. It's not, in the normal vocab for most people, so it's okay. You did good.
Thank you, thank you. You're very kind. Um, and what we're going to talk about today is about brand and brand building. So, Taylor, let's start off. I always like to, whenever I talk about anything to do with brand, I always like to get a definition of brand from person because I feel like people often have a misunderstanding of what brand really is. So, what's your
Yeah.
definition of brand?
Ooh, it's such a good question, and I 100% agree with you. People, it's a very like nebulous term and
Yeah.
concept, and so I personally like to break it down like this. I think it's showing up for people through stories and visualization of like how you solve their problems, or how you show up in their life and help them kind of fulfill their life aspirations. So that can be, oh gosh, there goes my dachshund.
Oh,
She's
it's fine.
barking. My kids are home from school today. It's snowing outside and there's a snow day. Can I let her out real quick?
Oh, yeah, yeah, go
She
ahead,
might
yeah.
keep
Yeah,
talking.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, no, you're good.
Oh goodness, she's got to guard the house. Might be a mailman here or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah, no, that's, I always love it when
Yeah.
you
So, and on that, like one of my favorite kind of ways that someone who everybody sort of knows about talks about brand is Jeff Bezos. He says a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
mhm.
And I love that definition, but I really think it's also about like, so how do you put that out into the world and focus in on helping your target audience address some problem or seek some aspiration in their life? Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense, because I feel that sometimes people forget that everybody in an organization, everything you do, everything informs the brand because, like you said, it's how you show up, it's how people perceive you, and that can be, and let's face it, I mean that can be from a customer support call. That can be how
Yes.
your experience of the brand.
Yeah, totally. I actually have like a diagram I show people, clients, when I'm explaining this. Like, let's say we're doing a rebrand project, and then I'm like about to present to them their new brand. A lot of times I sort of like open it up with a framework that I like to think about. A lot of times people say they think of a brand as words or a
Mhm.
logo
Yeah.
or font selection or color selection, but I like to think of like your brand is like this thing in the middle, and all around it within your whole company there's all these different parts of the company that are a part of the brand. So, like, yeah, it's what the marketing team's saying, it's what the sales team is saying. It's also customer support, it's product, it's, like, it's event experiences. It's all of these things that like make up the brand. Again, how you actually solve your, customers' problems.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse, right? Is there, Taylor, than to have what you perceive as your brand, but it gets communicated different ways by different people, and it means different things to different people. It's very obviously then, uh, it really depends on your touch point and what facet of the
Mhm.
brand is being communicated to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think it's really key for companies to have standard messaging pillars that they use. A lot of times, what happens, unfortunately, is like the brand guideline stays in the marketing team, and no one outside the marketing team really sees the brand guideline. And a lot of times, the brand guideline is also just technical pieces of the brand, like the
Mm,
font. and you can't use the logo like this. But I think what needs to be more broadly distributed within companies is a brand message book, right? Where
Mm,
people and all departments can be drumming that same drum beat. This is how we wanna be known. I think of it like a drum beat almost, like
right.
those core pillars that, you're just kinda beating like a drum.
Yeah, and let's face it, I mean, marketing sometimes, unfortunately, you know, undermines us a little, as you said, because sometimes marketing does just holds the brand, and then, as you said, everybody's received that little, one pager with here's how you use the logo, here are the colors, here's what you can and can't, and it all, as you said, it all sounds very technical. It's very easy for somebody in another part of the organization to go, well, I don't use the logo, so this has got nothing to do with me, and they're completely disconnected then from the brand.
Yeah, absolutely, and I don't think that the marketing team should hold that brand
Yeah,
guideline so close to themselves, like, why? I don't even understand why are we territorial about that? It doesn't necessarily help anyone, like, why is that something to be territorial about? I don't know, that's a good question, that could be a whole whole 'nother podcast
yeah, yeah.
discussion.
Well, I do believe that, because I do believe that sometimes, because then other parts of the organization, they think, well, they're just over there playing with colors and stuff like that, and it's, that's just marketing. They do whatever they do, and instead of like you said, and there's blame on all sides, but I think marketing need to do a better job of making the whole concept of brand more accessible to everybody else.
I 100% agree. In fact, a lot of times we go in and we try to get in with the sales teams as well, because even just between marketing and sales, you
Hmm.
see disconnects. And like that's not a place that should be disconnected. There needs to be a really, really clear, strong bond between those departments. And so we usually recommend when working with a brand to go in and like help train the sales team
Hmm.
on the positioning and on the messaging and what are we trying to relay to the people that they're on the phone selling to, and how are we making sure that that's consistent with what's being put out in, the more mass marketing, top of the funnel
Hmm.
approaches.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think sales and marketing alignment, it's crazy that it's whatever, we're heading into 2025 and we're still having that conversation. But there you go. But I totally agree with you. I think, the sales needs to be involved in these conversations, and they need to be bought in and on board, because, they are the tip of the spear. And the other thing, Taylor, is sometimes people think, okay, you've got your brand, it's established, that's fantastic, everything's good, but brands evolve over time. So talk to me a little bit about how you help people with an evolving brand, because as I said, like, people love to do put things in boxes and say, okay, we've taken care of our brand, everything's good, we don't have to worry about that for the next few years.
Oh yeah, no, I think of a brand as a living and breathing entity.
Hmm.
The world evolves around us. So,
Hmm.
like, our brand needs to evolve as the world evolves. As things change, technology changes, it causes companies to evolve their offerings. The brand should be evolving as well with it. And yeah, it's funny. Sometimes people get so stuck. I've seen this happen a lot. They get so stuck on, well, that's not in the brand guideline. Like, well, maybe the brand guideline could be changed,
Yeah.
you know? Or, like, tweaked, like, "Is this better?" "Yeah, it's better." "Well, then why can't we tweak the brand guideline?" And so I think it's really important to keep an open mind,
Hmm.
to listen to the market and what customers are needing and where the rest of the market is going and, like, keep pace with what your customers and what the market needs with your branding.
And let's face it, Taylor, with all the different channels now and places you need to be and places you need to turn up, uh, the brand is in so many more places, or you need to get it in so many more places. It's getting quite complicated.
Yeah, it's not easy, and that's what's fun. That's why it's like when people are like, "Oh, marketing is just over there playing with colors," like, no, it's actually a really hard job. There's, like, a lot to know, a lot to try all the time. It's a regular, trial and error, to be quite frank, and I think it's important to try things and fail and then learn and try again, and I do think it's really important to have a really strong core consistent brand message and guideline and
Mhm.
then to know that, it might be applied just slightly different for the audience based on what channel you're,
Yeah.
in. So, TikTok might be a little bit of a different experience than a Facebook or definitely a LinkedIn, and now there's Reddit and Blue Sky, and there's all these things, I think the most important thing, rather than getting super overwhelmed with it, is to ask yourself, like, where do we think our biggest audience
Mhm. Yeah.
opportunity is? And, like, let's show up well in those few places first and get really good at them, or even in that one place, like
Mhm.
for a lot of B2B brands in particular, it's LinkedIn. Great. Get really good at LinkedIn,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know?
thankfully, people haven't started dancing on LinkedIn yet because that for me
Yeah.
would be a deal breaker.
Well,
But one of the things that you mentioned on there is focus, right? Is focus on where your prospective customer audience is, or where your main customer audience is, as opposed to going spreading yourself too thin, because just because TikTok exists doesn't mean that that's where your customers are going to be, that
right,
it's going to help you. Alternatively, it may be where all your customers are,
right.
but you have to go through that process of figuring out where people are, as opposed to just saying we need to be on these platforms.
Yeah, exactly, and a lot of brands do that, because they think they need to keep up,
Mhm.
or they have some consultant who told them so, and then they just, they burn out, they pull their hair out, they don't really succeed at any of them, and so I'm a big believer in focus. I'm
Mhm.
not on TikTok because I just have not found it to be, like, that important right now for my audience. Some people keep saying, "Oh, you should do TikTok." I'm
Mhm.
like, "We'll get to that." Like, I gotta get better at this stuff first, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. But my son told me that I have no place on TikTok, so I haven't got
No, I just have not I don't know, I feel too old. I have
he just said
not
he just
wanted
said, "Dad, it's
to
not for
go
you. It's
there.
not for you, okay? Stick with Instagram."
Snapchat, I don't yeah, I can handle 2. I
Yeah,
do Instagram and LinkedIn, and, like,
yeah,
that's it.
yeah, I'm the same, that's it. Uh, tell me, tell me without naming, obviously, but, some of your clients, have you any good examples of somebody evolving a brand, a good story about evolving a brand?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been working one recently that, had a really strong brand, like a brand where a bunch of people knew about them,
Mhm.
but they didn't necessarily know what they did. So, like, oh yeah, I see them; they're everywhere, but I don't know really what they do. And so it wasn't like a problem with the design of the logo or their color palettes or anything like that. But really, what it was like their messaging just was not geared properly towards the people they were trying to interact with. And so we went through an exercise to like just mostly rework their messaging, give them a little bit of a freshening update. And, since then, since implementing those changes, they've been seeing their best sales, uh, months. They've been seeing their highest conversion rates, on digital properties. And so I think sometimes it's not always like the look of the brand, but it
Yeah.
could be like the wrong message that just doesn't make sense. And you've just got to be really, really clear with your messaging.
No, and I think that's a great example because, I feel today sometimes people are trying to evolve a brand or trying to create a new personality for their business, and it just jars, it just doesn't fit. Like, I see
Mhm.
sometimes brands suddenly trying to be kind of cool and fun and it just completely jars with who they are and who they are, so they're trying to evolve this message, but their company is still the same. Instead of, I
Yeah.
think sometimes people fail to embrace who they really are.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, one of the biggest ones that everyone's been like rumbling about recently is this Jaguar rebrand,
Mhm.
and a lot of the sentiments that I've been reading online is like, I don't think they really understood like the target audience, like people
Mhm.
who buy Jaguars.
Yeah.
Now, maybe there's an argument to be made internally where they're trying to change that and they're trying to go after a different market and get different people to buy Jaguars that haven't bought
Mhm.
Jaguars before. So there could be some purpose behind it in that way. But I do think if they, It's a really good example, just really, really relevant right now because like, people are blowing it up lately
Mhm.
on LinkedIn in particular and Twitter. I am on Twitter a little bit too,
Mhm.
but mostly just to, like, consume.
Yeah.
But that's a potentially an example of them not necessarily thinking so much about, like, who really is our target customer.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great example because yeah, I think if you look at the traditional brand assets for something like Jaguar and then you compare it with what they're trying to do now, it's one of two things. They either decided they found a brand new audience who are going to buy their cars because in many ways you're sort of communicating that you're leaving your traditional
Mhm.
customer behind. And that's a strategy. I mean, maybe they have, I don't know, maybe they're going to bring out these cool looking cars that don't look like Jags anymore and look like something else. But it is a very stark example of really kind of departing from your traditional customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another interesting brand that I've been kinda monitoring and how they've, like, altered their commercials, over the last year or so is Airbnb.
Mm.
So, I've seen people sort of, diss their commercials. "Oh, Airbnb is a more elevated brand than these commercials," and the commercials I'm kinda noting are, like, real tactical and specific about why you would want an Airbnb
Mhm.
over a hotel.
Right.
I actually think it's brilliant marketing. I think it's really good because they are so clearly speaking to the pain points of a hotel versus a commercial, of a
Mhm.
hotel versus an Airbnb, that I think it's, like, super clear, really good messaging. So that's an example where, like, I actually think it makes a lot of sense that they're like, "Hey, you might wanna put your kids to bed, but you wanna stay up later. Great time for an Airbnb instead of a
Mhm.
hotel." Like,
Yeah.
to me, that speaks to me and my even me as a parent. I'm like, "Yeah, well, that makes more sense. That is a little air," you know? So I think that's a really good example too of, like, them thinking about who are we really trying to get,
Mhm.
through the door, and, like, let's really speak to them on their level.
Yeah, and I think that's and I know I think that is a great example as well because I do think that sometimes communicating exactly there used to be this commercial in the I'm from originally from Ireland, but it used to be on the UK TV and it was for it was a commercial for stuff you put on fences, that
Mm,
to stop them from rotting, whatever it is, and it was called Ron Seal for weatherproofing, and it basically their ad was it does what it says on the tin.
mm,
It weatherproofs. That's it. Simple as.
yeah,
And that stuck. I mean, this is like what 40 years later that commercial still sticks with me. But what you just said there is sometimes I think people try to be too clever instead of stating exactly
yeah.
what you do and why it benefits you.
Right, exactly, and that kinda goes back to what we talked about in the beginning with,
Mhm.
showing up with stories and visualization about how you solve someone's problem, how you fit into their lives, and so I think that that is a good example too of just like, "This is what it is.
Mhm.
This is the product. This is what it solves. Do you need it?"
Yeah, yeah.
You
And
know?
it is,
Yeah,
and
I
it
kinda do need it on my deck out there, you know?
yeah, 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 exactly, and I think sometimes, I think I always love the quote from the mockumentary Spinal Tap, where one of them, I don't know if you remember that movie, but the guy at one stage goes, there's a thin line between clever and stupid.
I think I saw it a really long time ago, I don't remember, but
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I love it, I love
Mm.
that.
So just finally, where do you see brand going? Are there any? Is there any things happening that you think people should be aware of?
Yeah, I think, it's really interesting right now because of AI and how AI is suddenly changing the world of marketing so much and so quickly, and I mean, all of our lives, to be honest, in a way. I
Mhm.
think that what will be really important for brands to do is to maintain and lean into, the human side of
Mhm.
themselves.
Right.
even if, you're a tech brand or you're an AI brand, well, there's a human aspect to everything that we purchase, everything that we decide as consumers to engage with. And so I think watching brands evolve, I think there's going to be this sort of like fork where you're going to see the like AI only
Mm,
brands, and I actually think like that's going to get old pretty fast.
yeah.
And then the human centered brands, and I think those are going to be the ones that really maintain our curiosity and win our hearts.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's and I think the more the technology evolves, the more that AI evolves, the more important that the maintaining that human element is going to be, and that's what people are going to be looking for. Just like it was starting pre-COVID, but after COVID, it was like, oh, we need to connect as humans again. I mean, I think we'll go through that.
Yeah.
We'll go through that phase again too with AI.
Yeah.
So listen,
Well,
Taylor, this has been fantastic. All of Taylor's information is going to be below this video. But before we go, please do tell people a little bit more about what you do.
yeah, I'm the founder and chief shizzle officer at Creative Shizzle. We are a graphic design and content on demand, service and agency. We do a lot of brand work and brand strategy, and then we support a lot of brands with just the ongoing production of like making really awesome and beautiful content and marketing and sales materials with graphic design and with content writing support.
Fantastic. Well, listen, we've never had a chief shizzle officer on before, so this is a first. So that's all. I love when we have firsts on this show. So thanks again, Taylor. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.